Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, reporting on the worst heat wave in a millennium. The Washington Post says that the June heat wave in the Pacific Northwest was a 1 in 1,000 year event. They said these events are becoming more common and they're caused by climate change, stupid. Unless people drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the coming years, this heat wave doesn't represent a new normal, but rather a something. And 2 days ago they said, we are fiddling while the world burns, floods, and something. And once again they talked about 1 in 1,000 year events. The message that they're trying to convey is that we're having unprecedented extreme weather, and it's going to get worse unless you stop using fossil fuels. So we read the propaganda, now let's look at the actual data. Our most accurate way of measuring the global temperature is from satellites, which have very good coverage of almost the entire Earth. Satellites show that global June temperatures were slightly below average, as they've been for 3 out of the last 4 months. Temperatures today are 0.2 degrees Celsius above the 1979 to 2000 average. That doesn't sound very scary, and temperatures in both the Arctic and the Antarctic are below normal. South Africa is seeing record cold and snow. Now let's focus on the United States, where the 1 in 1,000 year heat wave is supposed to have occurred. This graph from NOAA data shows when U.S. states set their all-time high temperature record. No states have broken their all-time temperature record this year, but in 1936, 21 states did. Neither Washington nor Oregon broke their state temperature records, which were set in 1928 and 1898. Perhaps the writers at the Washington Post believe that 1928 was more than 1,000 years ago. The writing tends to be mathematically and scientifically illiterate. Now let's look at U.S. temperatures so far this summer. This graph shows the June 1st to July 20th percent of United States historical climatology network stations which reached 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius. This year was the 4th lowest on record. Less than 3/4 of the United States has made it up to 90 degrees this summer, compared to 90 years ago when 96% of the country did. And as far as the percent of days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, this year has also been below normal, and just a little over half of 85 years ago. The average maximum temperature so far this summer has been just about average since 1895. Nothing about this summer looks like a 1,000 year heat wave. The Washington Post also says that we're burning up due to fossil fuels. But burn acreage so far this year in the United States has been well below the 10-year average and less than half of 10 years ago. So far this summer, burn acreage in the United States has been about 1/20th of what it was 90 years ago in 1931. In 1931, there was a terrible drought and people were starving in the United States of America. People were starving in Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and other places because it was so dry and hot they couldn't grow any food. 1931 was a terrible year. Almost the entire country got over 90 degrees Fahrenheit that summer. Meanwhile, that same summer, China was having the deadliest floods on record. 50,000 square miles of China was flooded, including Wuhan. Millions of people died and tens of millions became homeless. 1931 had record fires, record heat, record floods, and record starvation. The climate alarmists at the Washington Post want people to believe that the climate used to be safe and stable. But the historical record shows that the Washington Post is misinforming their readers. 1931 had the deadliest floods in history, but 1935 and 1939 were also in the top 5. And all of the 10 deadliest floods in world history occurred with carbon dioxide levels below the safe level of 350 parts per million. The Washington Post is selling snake oil. They claim that we can end bad weather by reducing CO2 emissions, but the historical evidence shows the exact opposite. Reality is that the U.S. climate and the global climate are much better than they were 90 years ago. Washington Post writers sit in their nice fossil-fueled powered offices. They're paid to generate propaganda which has the potential to eventually ruin their own lives. Toto understands that their best hope and the best hope for humanity is that people don't listen to Washington Post junk science and propaganda. Toto has been pulling back the curtain on this insanity for the past 13 years. You can visit him, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.